Hi everyone, don't mind me, I'm just doing a bit of a test. Setting up a slightly new recording space using the side table, which is traditionally for keeping track of stuff that has been prepared to go on the store, which isn't necessarily on the store yet. So for example, if I bring one of these over, we have finished pieces of artwork which haven't been photographed for the store yet, stuff which I wanted to go back and do in a different way. Basically, I wanted to retake pictures of all the physical things I've done and then use those pictures for social media through one of my secondary accounts called Alternative Halt, which not many people know about. I kind of prepared it in preparation for all the extra bits and bobs like that. But also I thought it would be a nice idea to kind of split up workspaces a bit for the sake of discussions as well. This is something I did a few months ago, but never really stuck with it because I needed to kind of recycle the workspace. But now that I can upload videos from this rental, I effectively needed to set up another computer as an upload node. So I've got my laptop now on the side, which kind of acts as a backup now. I can also use it to crunch down videos to make them ready to upload, which is something I didn't really pay too much attention to before, but now it's kind of become a necessity because when you're working on limited internet, it's really inhibiting not being able to upload anything. So that's what I've done. I've kind of retrofitted this desk into a place where I can prepare things for stores and also to use it as a backup node for uploading content. Now what this meant is getting a bit more vertical space. So to do that, I got some nice MDF shelves with kind of different layers, and it's kind of adjustable as well, so you can have it in different layouts, but I just wanted it to give me some extra space to keep some of the extra things I have. But then also for the sake of recording with a relatively good quality, I brought the Canon G7X Mark II out, kind of put it on the MDF shelf, and also got the Shure microphone out. Now the Shure has got a kind of different threading size to a lot of the other microphones when you get base stands with them, so you need a bit of an adapter. I don't know the official measurements, but rather than wait for an adapter to turn up, I'm just showing some of the doodles while I go on, I decided to pretty much scrap together everything that I had access to and then retrofitted it into something which resembles a boom arm, but is done in a completely non-traditional way. What did I do while making this doodle? Doodled while creating the communication framework for an AI-assisted automation network, a system for the future studio where I can have multiple computers on various workload tasks. So I remember doing a couple of videos about that. So yeah, I've made a boom arm like this, which means it can be moved out the way, and also an important thing is that if I wobble this table, the boom arm moves independently from it, which means that it's not necessarily messing with my balance issues so much. So what else has been going on? The release of Blender 4.0 has got me very busy. It's functionally broken, I think, most of the add-ons, though I haven't actually tried all of them at this specific point in time because I just wanted to focus down and fix what I could. So modular workspaces has now been mostly fixed. There are some extra limitations, but also some extra features thanks to Gixo. So I need to get that out at some point soon, hopefully before Black Friday, which I also need to prepare for. But that's also going to be a bit tricky because not long afterwards I'm going to have a wisdom tooth removed, so I need to make sure everything is prepared for that. Black Friday will be one of the rare examples where I can post something to the Gumroad mailing list because I don't typically use it so much anymore. I used to do newsletters, but they took a lot of time to prepare, and also it's quite nerve-wracking because there's 110-20,000 people on the mailing list, so whenever you post something, well, the larger it gets now, the more purposeful I think the posts have to be, but also you just end up proofreading them 100 times over because you get really anxious about making a mistake when sending something to that many people. Although I've always tried to tell myself now that when you do post something to that many people, instead of seeing them as this conglomerate, a large number, as if you were kind of standing and, performing in front of a crowd for the first time, sometimes it's nicer just to imagine them all as individual people. If you say something or perform something to one person, it's not as scary as a large crowd, but a large crowd is just a lot of single people like that. So I try and visualize that large number of people as just an individual, and something about that kind of helps in a way. Maybe that won't make sense to everyone, but I think it's useful. It's not like everyone is sitting in a crowd together and collectively judging something you post or a mistake you make. It's just a bunch of individuals who are individual as they're observing it, so that alone isn't scary. Now, as I alluded to in some previous videos, especially on the main channel, income has been a bit more difficult this year, but I also made the difficult decisions to change policies for how I approach or share the work of other creators in the community in a way which is more protective of my time. And I'm happy to say that that has been working. So specifically, we're thinking about the casual sponsor system. Again, I'm getting more and more people contact me about it, which is nice, and I enjoy the freedom of being able to post without having to do it as well. What I mean by that is we have the queue of people that will be fulfilled at some point in the future, but if I like, I can just take a break, do a couple of experimental videos, and if I feel like it, I don't have to put people on there. So you can just move in and out of it as you please, but people understand that you are keen on getting their sponsorships fulfilled, and you'll do it at the best pace that you can. But also having so many people to talk to now that are interested in the system means that I'm falling a bit behind on messaging. So it's always been a bit of a trouble for me responding to people. Some people take it personally, I can tell, even though they pretend not to. But that's just one of the, side effects of it. I wish there was an easy way for me just to indicate to people that I'm busy on a particular day or what I'm doing at a certain point in time. I could post it on Twitter or the YouTube community or Instagram. But the thing is, the audience is so split across different areas. And when I'm getting messages from people, it's across all of the different platforms that if I wanted to update people on me being busy, I would have to post it everywhere. And even then, it's not going to catch everyone. So, for example, by no fault of their own, I would get a few messages from people while I was at a family funeral recently. And when people find that out, they're very apologetic, which is fine. But also, that's the time when you think, all right, I really don't want you to try and push me to respond right now. But people miss the context, obviously. Most people understand when I say I'm busy, but it can take like a few weeks to get back to someone. I also find it interesting that a few people that kind of heavily disagreed with my affiliate policies, as far as I know, are trying to get back in contact with me now that, I don't know why, maybe they're seeing that things haven't failed with the channel, something like that, but I don't know. Who gives a shit? I finally got back to making a piece of artwork recently just for the sake of it. That was one, taking some of the data from my brain scan and just making something nice with it. I quite like doing the diorama artworks. It is weird how stuff has changed over time. Like I used to be really interested in doing environment art when getting started with Blender and then sculptures and stuff, but something about more limited space dioramas focusing on a subject is quite interesting. I'm almost visualizing, hey, is this something that I could make in real life one day? So I found it pretty cool designing something in 3D space like that. Just receiving a message from Gixo at the moment, who's helping with modular workspaces. But yeah, also recently I had a doctor appointment for something. You need to get things checked every now and again, and that kind of really played on my anxiety, but thankfully that's turned out to be nothing serious, which is good. And now I have my kind of balance issues mostly under control. And there was something interesting yesterday. I released a Blender 4.0 feature video, and I got a comment from someone saying, hello friend, you're looking a slight bit rotund lately, or something like that. As a translation, that says I'm looking more chubby recently, which is interesting, and I'm not self-conscious about that so much. Something has definitely changed, but I haven't really put on much weight over the last year. I think what we're looking at is a physical imprint of the health issues from earlier in the year. I remember mentioning in that video how I took lansoprazole pretty straight for about 3 years, which I'm pretty sure led to a slight weight gain over the first couple of years, and then it plateaued. And then while dealing with the health issue and coming off of it, I was doing quite rigorous tests on my body, a variety of dietary and drug tests and stuff, to see what would improve it. And this happened over months, right? Weirdly, I've been more active recently as we come to this rental as well. What I think has happened is, because I've noticed kind of physiological changes, especially when looking back at myself in previous years, even just from last year, I think that what I'm left with is effectively a biological marker for dealing with the vestibular issues, the scar tissue of suffering, I suppose. However, I also think it's interesting because for the longest time in my life, I actually struggled to put on weight. I wasn't necessarily underweight. I think I was pretty much on the border of it. My ribs were quite clearly visible. I was quite gaunt looking. And there were times when I did legitimately try to put on weight, like with effort, but it just never really worked out. It was only really when I started taking lansoprazole that things changed, but also maybe it's just a timing thing. I know your metabolism is supposed to slow down, but I mean, I've looked at the science, it's not really supposed to happen at this point. And like I said, things have plateaued. Even coming off lansoprazole now, everything's coming back to me. And I think I have an opportunity now to do something with the clay available. For example, I think when I was younger, building muscle mass would have been quite a difficult thing, but now I think it would probably be a lot easier. And I think there'll be a good opportunity for that when moving into the new house next year. And I was speaking to Ben about this last night as well, that it'd be interesting to apply our creativity to our health in more interesting ways. For example, we've been speaking about like getting into fashion design and stuff. Basically applying skills which you traditionally use for your digital work, but in the physical space, which is again what I've been doing with the artwork, but also applying that to other things like food and drink. For example, I've got like a complex set of supplements that I take every day and an electrolyte complex, depending on what I was having earlier in the day. But it occurred to me, why drink like sodas, alcohol, other sources of caffeine, teas, etc.? Why not design and make our own drinks cheaply and store them? Drinks which are optimized for health, but not necessarily over the top, something with a bit of creative flair. The same thing goes for exercise. Why do the same thing that everyone else does? Why not design your own exercises? And I thought it was interesting because I said this as well, that when something becomes almost implicitly competitive, like you see so many people doing the same workouts online, someone's like really hyper masculine, cringy personalities and stuff, not all the time, sometimes it's really wholesome, but I think there are a lot of guys out there that can't help make something competitive, but when I see that, I get really turned off by it. And I'm like, okay, sod that, we'll do something our own way. So one thing I had in mind, for example, for the future studio was exercise through balance training, which kind of goes hand in hand with the vestibular stuff as well. So it might literally be a case of like having a bar slightly raised from from the ground and then having another one from the ceiling, and then doing a series of exercises which are effectively balancing across the bar and then migrating to the upper one and down below as well. Like a form of gymnastic yoga or something like that, but also combined with swimming because there'll be a pool house and that's always fun. But I like the idea of just putting new creative twists on stuff, because very rarely do I think that the way things are the way things they should always be, particularly for things like that where there's just such common conventions like, oh, doing weights and push-ups and reps and all that kind of stuff. Although I used to do parkour as a kid, teen, and I was good at the gymnastic side of things as well. That's it, I was never interested in football, but you give me a rope and I was swinging all over the place. Some kids were interesting, they couldn't figure out how to hold your weight. There was a couple of other kids I was trying to teach to do that, but they just couldn't get their head around it, which I thought was funny. You see people start to swing, they just fall down. So I think if I was to kind of, now going forward, stop testing my body for health reasons and start going to something more productive or constructive, it'd be something interesting with kind of elegant element to it. But also with the area I am now, we're near to the coast and there are lots of really interesting, quite long areas to walk to as well. So I think some kind of long range endurance type stuff as well on the side of that. So we have like some kind of elegance through balance training, swimming, and then long distance endurance work. That seems like something I'd be kind of more interested in. And also maybe precision, you know, like how darts, there is some physical activity in that, but it's also about hand-eye coordination and prediction. Maybe something more complex than that, something more involved with the body, balance, precision, endurance, than whatever we would call swimming. I don't really care about weights or pull-ups, that kind of stuff. Gixo is informing me that we may have a good version of modular workspaces by the end of today, which is great. So yeah, I'll close up this recording test and discussion. Hope you're doing well. If you made it this far, put some kind of camera emoji, and I will see you next time.